Hello to my water signs, Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces. Welcome to round 1 of Eclipse season 2024. You'll find the timestamps for your rising signs listed below. Hello Cancer Rising, welcome to your reading for Eclipse season, round 1 of 2024. Now I'm doing something a little bit different this time around. Rather than giving separate horoscopes for each of the eclipses, I've decided to combine this reading into one, so we can start to think about the polarity of our chart and how one side often gets affected by the other. It's been a really hectic time and I need to rest. So hopefully this is going to be concise. Hopefully it's going to give you some support as we journey into eclipse season. We know that at eclipses we have no say in the astrology. There's limited access to working with the magic of the moon, and it is really a time to just sort of hunker down and live through this. As one of my favorite Libra risings, Courtney Love, says. So let's have a think about the axis that we're working with here. I'm going to show you the tarot as I describe this. So on March the 25th, which I think is today, the day that I'm setting this out into the ether, we have a Libra eclipse. And in tarot, it's the Justice card that speaks really directly to the energy of Libra. We know that Libra is a sign that's ruled by Venus. We know that there is something about harmonics and balance and equity and right relationship and fairness. And we know that sometimes in this life, those topics are incredibly difficult to come to grips with. We feel that sense of injustice in the world globally at present quite sincerely. And if we cast our mind gently back to October of last year, this is when this eclipse cycle commenced. So topics around October of last year are in the forefront of our mind once more. Many examples of injustice across the globe. And so it hurts. It really hurts. But what we can do is think about the philosophical connotations of eclipses. In astrology, they're marked down as the dragon's head and the dragon's tail. So at present, the dragon's head is in Aries. In tarot, Aries is the emperor. There's something really bold and autonomous and self-expressed about the emperor and about the sign Aries. We can emulate these qualities in our lives. Every tarot card and every sign of the zodiac speaks to us somewhere in our makeup. It's just a matter of where. On your birth chart, if you're a Cancer rising, Aries is your 10th house, where you're most publicly visible. Your career, if you have one, your vocation, definitely. What you are setting out in this life to accomplish, your vision. And on the opposite side of the scale, Libra, I'll turn it around this way so we can enjoy it in its higher vibration rather than eclipsed. Libra is your sense of home, your sense of belonging, the way that you nurture, the way that your roots are growing and sturdy. There's something beautiful about having a 4th house that's ruled by the planet Venus, the planet of beauty and art and love. I really like this for you, Cancer rising, and this is a journey with the planet Venus and with the planet Mars too. So you might say that eclipses are ruled by the planet of which they occur. So to scrape through some of that more confusing astrological language, at this Libra eclipse in your 4th house of your sense of belonging, your sense of home, your root structures, we're going to be looking at Venus and what they've just experienced around the zodiac too. So we know that Venus and Saturn on March the 22nd made a conjunction in Pisces. So Venus being that expansive, loving, free-flowing energy in a conjunction with Saturn that feels something like a container, like a strict boundary and a perimeter. Sometimes Venus and Saturn can work really well if we're speaking about healthy boundaries in relationships. Sometimes there can be something of like a chokehold that kind of feels quite imminent with a Saturn and Venus conjunction. There might be something around a stifling, perhaps of some sort of feminine spirit or feminine energy. Now, if we look back to your birth chart, Cancer Rising, Pisces is your 9th house, which is where you travel, where you expand your mind and absorb philosophy. So we know that Saturn has been in this place for you for 1 year. It will be there for another year. And this Venus and Saturn conjunction may have been something of a light bulb moment for you. They could have been something hopeful in that journey with philosophy and with organized religion too. The 9th house, as much as it is bountiful, it can also be a little bit painful. In fact, for some folks, very painful. We know the hierarchical structures of organized religion have done so much damage across the globe and continue to do so. So something in this Saturn and Venus conjunction feels like faith. To me, it feels like hope. So if you can think to March 22nd of this year, it doesn't have to be so specific, but let's think about your life and the light bulb moments, the candle that you can see, the lantern that you can see moving forward through this really dense, heavy, emotional time. This is informing this eclipse in Libra. Now, because the dragon's tail is in Libra, in your root system, your homeland, there is something of a shedding that we might feel at this lunar eclipse. There might be something that falls away, or there might be some sort of revelation that you can put to bed finally. This is what I'm hoping for. Perhaps through your philosophy and your access to your spiritual language, there are stories from the past of your lineage, your ancestry, your home life that you can let go of finally. And as we move away from the energy of this lunar eclipse, we approach the solar eclipse in Aries. So we're back to the top of your chart. We're back to where you're most visible, where your vocation lies. Now, at this solar eclipse, which is happening on the 9th of April, it is definitely a date to mark in the calendar. For why? We can't be sure, because eclipses are unstable. They're volatile. It can't be predicted, nor should it be attempted to be predicted. However, this eclipse, so the sun and the moon are coming together at 19 degrees of Aries, right at the top of your chart, and they're in an exact conjunction with the asteroid Chiron, which is the marker point in all of our lives where we yearn to heal. There's a lot of conversations that we can have around unconscious wounding with Chiron's presence. And Chiron has been hitting these points, these other little light bulb moments with Mercury over the past month of March. There was a conjunction with Chiron and Mercury on the 21st of March. And then Mercury is going to station retrograde on the 2nd of April. So between these eclipses, Mercury is going to hold up and backtrack. So you can feel that instability as well. It's rising, it's becoming really volatile. If we hold on to our hats, and if we don't allow the astrology to overwhelm us and take control of us, we can really sit here and think about the elements, the cards, the story of self-actualization and of justice, and the pain that oppression brings to these two thoughts, these queries, these philosophies of ours. We're living through a time where the language of injustice is growing quite sincerely, when we have access to news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, from all different vantage points about what injustice actually is at this time. We can feel our sense of independence and our sense of autonomy, our right to be a human being and be free-flowing in the way that we are, be connected to our spirituality. That's all in question at this time. If anything Chiron can teach us is that our wounds sometimes need the help of others. And so maybe at this solar eclipse in Aries, the one that's short-circuiting, that's blotting out your 10th house, your vocation, there might be some work in there, in the aftermath, after these eclipses, that we can focus on. Mercury's station retrograde, I think, in the middle of this chaos for some purpose, because they are going to then conjoin with Chiron once more. And we're going to breathe some sort of sigh of relief when we can sift through the evidence of what we've lived through, and we can pick up what we've learned, and then we can move forward. So that's eclipse season. You can see that there's sort of limited access to the moon, and that is destabilizing for you as a Cancer rising, and I think for any one of us that is longing to find a rhythm in this life right now. We can rely on the moon usually, and eclipse season has us be mistrustful or in fear of the moon's activity. On April the 9th, this solar eclipse is going to pass directly across the United States. And so some folks are going and gathering to witness this once in a lifetime event, to look and to see. In my work, and from a perspective that has been learned from other astrologers that I admire very greatly, Chani Nicholas is one of them, there is some advice about not interacting with the visual of an eclipse. So if you are in the United States, it'll be up to you if you want to absorb this incredible moment, or if you want to take your time and to meditate and to calm yourself through this process. An eclipse conjunct Chiron in Aries is pointing to the wounding, perhaps, of supremacy. And so this is one example of what we might see occur on the world stage, and perhaps in your life, in the part of your life that is about your vocation, that is about your visibility. I'm going to get you some tarot now, Cancer rising. I hope I've been trying to get my message across. And I think somewhere along the line, I think definitely with Mercury's interference in Pisces, I lost my way. I have a mind that works in overdrive. And I think when you're engaging with this sort of mathematical work that is full of variables, and you can find patterns here and you can find patterns there, it can sometimes reach an overwhelming critical point. Mercury in Pisces is a real example of overwhelm, I might say. However, on the Mercury-Neptune conjunction on the 9th of March, so the day before the Pisces new moon, the lunation that we last spoke about, Mercury, the planet of messages and information, made a conjunction with Neptune, the planet of the sea, the god, the lord of the ocean, the energy that gives us our dreams, that talks to us when we're unconscious, that has us imagine, has us fantasize. I woke up that night dreaming of blue, this incredible ultramarine deep blue. And I've spent the last month trying to ascertain why. I've tried to fold that into my work, so you'll probably notice the water signs are going to be under the veil of blue from now on. And I've got further discussion to have with you about that later. But I just wanted to maybe give you some examples of the astrology working in synergy with our lives rather than in conflict, because there's too much conflict and we need some balance. What I feel is you are at the end of your tether, and take this as it lands. I feel that there is something about being exhausted here, Cancer rising. I feel that initially there was a treasure map there was a road to somewhere that you were really enjoying and engaged with, finding the path. Perhaps it was a path that was maybe unbeaten and you had to slash through it. But you've been using a lot of magic lately. You've been really holding on to that part of you that conjures, that makes something out of nothing. And we're sitting at a point here, Cancer Rising, where there's not enough petrol left in your tank, where it feels like all of the wicks are too wet. There might not be enough fuel to continue. This is how you feel, but the tarot is saying this isn't the case, because somewhere there's one more. Somewhere there's one more match. There's one more spark. And I think that someone with 9 wands is someone that has some sense of authority over their magic too. Death is not the end. Death is the beginning of something else. When you watch a garden die off, slowly, 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 you enjoy the seeds. When everything goes to seed and starts to sprinkle the potential for the new in its dying hours before it shrivels up and goes away, we know that the experience of death, the act of death, invites new growth, invites something to be birthed. So if there's some sort of crossroads that you're standing at, Cancer Rising, and if there's a fear around this card or around the concept of death, then I'd like to hold your hand and gently remind you to go out into the garden and to look at everything that has died off, that has planted its seeds for the next season, because this is kind of perhaps what this eclipse season might be bringing in. There's going to be endings and there's going to be beginnings. So I hold you in this time, in this blue light, this Neptunian universe that we're creating together, Cancer Rising. I hold you, and I trust that you're going to take care of yourself during eclipse season. I trust that you're not going to get too confused about this mishmash of dates and mishmash of transits and all of this kind of stuff. I think that this is the central feeling of this reading. So we're going to sit and we're going to pray and we're going to make sure that we work from our power, which is love, which is the depth of our emotion, the deep blue sea. And we're going to breathe a sigh of relief together as the moon finds its feet again. That's your reading, Cancer Rising. Thank you very much for being here. If you are still here with me, can you please put a guitar in the comments, please, in honor of my favorite Libra rising, Courtney Love. And I will be with you soon. I'm working on another project, so there won't be horoscopes until we're clear of eclipse season. However, there is something that I am working on that hopefully I will have completed in time and in a fashion that honors my research. I'm going through a metamorphosis of language and I'm confusing myself, and I'm also coming clear of that too. So thank you for your company. Thank you for being here. In the meantime, if you'd like me to read your birth chart, your personal birth chart, the map of the sky when you were born, I draw them out here like this on black paper and I read them to you over Zoom. You can make an appointment with me at umoruby.com. That's my website. If you'd like to support my work financially, I'd be very grateful for that. And you can subscribe or you can throw some money in the tip jar at buymeacoffee.com/umoruby. All of my best love and protection during eclipse season, Cancer Rising. You have my heart, you have my love, and I will be speaking to you when the time is right. Hello, Scorpio Rising. Welcome to eclipse season. This is your reading for the first round of eclipses of 2024. So rather than give you a reading for each individual eclipse, I've decided to combine this reading into one. So hopefully we can get a sense of the polarity in our chart, the opposition of houses, and how one perhaps might inform the other. And indeed in the zodiac too, how one sign indeed informs the other. So the first eclipse to occur for us will be on March the 25th, and this will be a lunar eclipse in Libra. And so I think that this is today. I think this is the day that I'm posting this. But what I would like us to think about is the energy of Libra in your 12th house. We're speaking about these eclipses in your 12th house and your 6th house, your house of the unconscious and your house of reality. Physical reality, unconscious dreaming. Libra is unconscious dreaming, and Aries is your 6th house of the physical self. So when we look at the tarot to describe these parts of you, your sense of justice, your sense of fairness, your sense of balance and equity lays somewhere deep within. It's something perhaps that we can tie to your unconscious knowing on planet Earth. There are things that you know about the workings of the justice system, about what looks like justice and what doesn't, that come from you from some place other than your lived experience, although your lived experience has a lot to do with it too. But if you can think about your confidence as far as knowing a spade, as calling a spade, as far as really understanding the imbalance of power when you see it, and maybe there's something of confidence in there too for you. On the other side of the spectrum, we have your physical rhythm, the reality of your life. And this is the Aries part of you. This is the part that has you roll your sleeves up and put your face to the grindstone and work. This has you in a state of confidence, a state of autonomy, a state of individuality. You're a solo enterprise when it comes to your work ethic. You could probably look into a room and be like, right, what's this problem? What's this problem? Let's sort it out. I'll get it done. Don't worry. So these two houses in opposition, you can see how one sort of informs the other. It's kind of like pulling from the 12th, reaching into the unconscious chasms of your mind, into the physical sense of reality in the 6th house. These two houses to experience eclipses might bring about some difficulty. There are some things in this reading that I'd like to speak about your physical health, about the ecosystem of your body, and signals that your body is giving you as far as your well-being, and also what signals you might be receiving in your dreams too. So on March the 25th, we have a lunar eclipse in Justice. And the last time that we had eclipses in Aries and in Libra was last year. The first eclipse to occur was a solar eclipse in Libra on October the 15th. And so this feeling of injustice, this growing sense of righteousness perhaps, that is peppering and echoing language across the planet. Righteousness can be a great thing. Self-righteousness can be a really foul thing to contend with. This is going to be some time in our lives that we're going to need to rest as much as we can and roll with the punches. Eclipse energy is really unstable. It's a moon that we don't have access to, and that can be confronting for people that yearn to be in communion with the moon. There's also been some traffic banking up in Pisces that is informing these eclipses. There's something of a gatekeeper that we can speak to with Saturn. Saturn feels like, we talked about it with Pluto and the passage of planets through Pluto into Aquarius. The same is true of Saturn in Pisces. Saturn is a karmic gatekeeper, the one that keeps the score, the one with the balances, and the one with the container, the restriction, the limits. Saturn is definitely limits. And so when looking at your birth chart, Scorpio Rising, this is your 5th house that we're speaking to. Pisces is in your 5th house, which is where you express yourself, where you find access through pleasure and through art to your spirit, to your inner glow. And so this container that we've been working with Saturn for a year and for another year, has the passage of Mars, who rules Aries, who is the leader for Aries, and Venus, who is the leader for Libra. And so you can see that this passage through the container of your fifth house at present is somehow informing these eclipses in your health and in your mental health, your unconscious health, your inner world. So I wonder what repetition that you've been going through at this time. I wonder what you've been practicing. I wonder what you've been committing to at this time, Scorpio rising, because I think that it's going to help with the instability that eclipse season might bring with it. And it might not affect your life so personally, but I think that I would probably, in my diary, if I were you, mark the dates of March the 25th, which is today, the day that I'm releasing this, and also April the 9th, which is the day of the solar eclipse in Aries. And that eclipse is being informed by the energy of Chiron. And Chiron is the wounded healer of our zodiac. Chiron is the centaur, the sage that, try as they might, could not salve their own pain, even though they were so adept at salving everyone else's around them. No amount of knowledge gleaned could help with their very specific wound. And so when we see Chiron in the astrology and we see an eclipse right on Chiron in the sign of autonomy and independence, in your sixth house of your health, there are things here that we're going to be very mindful with, and we're going to really start to listen to our body if that's something that we haven't been doing, if there have been symptoms that we've been sort of putting on the bottom of the diary because we've got other things to take care of. This eclipse season, March and April, I plead with you to listen to your body, to listen to Chiron, to see where some of these wounds might lay. And this isn't to say that you're going to come into bad health, but it is a moment when the unstable energy of the universe, when the moon we can't rely on the moon, we've got to rely on our body, we've got to rely on ourselves. So check everything, check how your outer world is feeling, and also check how your unconscious world is feeling too. I know a lot of people that are suffering at this time, unconsciously or otherwise, sometimes very consciously, but there are other people that can't quite put their finger on why they're feeling so heavy. There's something to do with the lived reality of the sixth house that is very important at this time in this reading too, Scorpio rising. We can't ignore the outer world, and in times of crisis, we can't ignore the rise in descent that we can witness. We need to protect ourselves from harm. We need to protect ourselves from violent words and violent actions. We need to be kind as much as we can to one another. For Libra to be in your 12th house and to have Venus have just gone through this passage of restriction with Saturn, this boundary, this container, this could almost speak to the option of engaging in some sort of pleasure activity with someone and you thinking to yourself, this just doesn't feel right. This could be something here that's very specific. It might not be in direct relationship for you, but sometimes Saturn and Venus can be a healthy container to our givings, our outgivings, what we're giving away or forward, or what's passing through us, how we're expressing our love and adoration. So another thing to contend with is that between eclipses, so March 25th, the Libra lunar eclipse, then on the 2nd of April, Mercury will station retrograde in Aries. So you see we've got a Mercury retrograde in your 6th house too. There's real difficulty connecting these dots, trying to find the solutions here. There's confusion here. And then on the 9th of April, there will be the grand solar eclipse in Aries conjunct Chiron. All the while, Mercury is retrograde as well. So it does feel like a massive tremor. But a very smart, very wise, very beautiful, caring, giving astrologer called Channing Nicholas says it's 4 weeks. So this is a one good thing that we can do with astrology, is to give ourselves some hope. We don't look at this stuff to fear. We don't look at it as a bad omen. We can't anymore. It used to be used in that way to predict the worst or predict the right time to retaliate in war. But we've grown as a consciousness, and we now use it to reflect. We now use it to give ourselves some context for our lives and to give ourselves some hope. So as much as your life might be feeling incredibly unbalanced, incredibly unfair, you might be fearing for your autonomy or your safety or your voice being heard, we'll look at the astrology and we can recognize that this turbulence is being mirrored by the galaxy and it's finite. There will be a moment where we move through, and in fact the next lunations that we have clear of the dragon, clear of eclipses, are to do with you, your first house and your seventh house of your relationships. So there's hope on the way. You cast your mind back to the last 18 months and the eclipses in your first and your seventh house, and all that had to be let go of, all that shed away from you, and all of the extra information, the resources came flowing in out of nowhere as far as your grit and your determination to stand on your own 2 feet. Now it's in a different story on your chart. There's something about your unconscious world and your physical reality that we can speak to. On the 9th of April, a lot of folks are going out to look underneath this eclipse. And again, I'll refer back to Chani, but there's some people that don't engage with the eclipses physically. And I've vacillated over my life. Many years ago, I actually traveled across Australia to see an eclipse, to be underneath it and to witness it. There is something of the phenomena that's so enticing to do. But as I've gotten older and as I've been able to feel the energy and to need time to reconcile that, I don't engage in the visual phenomena of an eclipse so much anymore. That may change as I go forward, but this eclipse in Aries is going to be very visible over the majority of the United States. So I'd urge you to use your intuition to see if you'd like to engage with it physically or not. I'm going to get you some tarot, Scorpio Rising. I hope that you like this blue color that we're sitting in. I think that the water signs will sit in this blue color from now on. Way back in the 9th of March, I wrote it in my diary, it was the day before Mercury made a conjunction with Neptune in Pisces. I dreamt of blue in a very intense, visceral way. And then in the weeks following that, there was more blue in my dreams when I was trying to figure out what this was trying to tell me. When I looked at the astrology and I was like, okay, so what's Neptune trying to tell me? Neptune always encourages us to go deep. Neptune always encourages us to go deep, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. But I think if we're going to trust Neptune, if we're going to look at their authority as the Lord of the ocean, then this might be a time to commit to going deep. And if we're a water sign, there's the blue here to protect us. There's a blue that feels deep and sincere. Maybe not so cold. It feels enveloping though, doesn't it? In elemental magic, the color blue is in direct signification to water. So I'm perhaps giving a go at being a bit more conventional too. There's something here about nostalgia, Scorpio Rising. There's something here about, it doesn't have to be a lamentation, but it's definitely a harking back to a time prior, a time before. There's a sort of golden kind of feeling with the Six of Cups, which is quite pleasant and quite imaginative too. There's something about maybe not shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but definitely calling your mind back to a time from before and kind of reveling in the best bits of that time, the pleasure of that time. I think something felt like a good idea and there was maybe a connection that you made, or there was words that you received actually maybe from someone else, someone kind of arrived with all of this truth for you, and they felt quite justified in what they were saying. And I think that it's got something to do with your past. I think it's got something to do with a time from before. And maybe that's what's spurred on this sense of nostalgia for you. But I'm reminded of Saturn in Pisces. I'm reminded of that container that we've worked so diligently on for the last year to protect your gifts, to protect your erotic, creative energy. Perhaps this is a moment, this is a time in your life, doesn't have to be forever, but where there is some real, there is some revision as to who and how you give yourself away to. What kind of connections are you making from now on? Or maybe just in this time, it changes, doesn't it? But this feels like a time of incubation, and it feels like there's been a bit of a seduction from the past that we're going to work through. And maybe with these eclipses, this time frame, March leading into April, might be the wrong time to go on a hunch or try and read between the lines, because the Knight of Swords says a whole bunch of stuff, but sometimes you need to do a bit of a translation too. So I'll leave you with that. I'll leave this reading with that, I think. Scorpio Rising. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your patience. And I hope that this new format isn't so confusing. It will be a little while before I start to speak with you in horoscope land. However, I am working on something else, so that I'm not going to be not publishing. It's just a different avenue that I've been thinking of, and hopefully I can pull it off. Hopefully I don't step in my own way like I sometimes tend to do. But this is the last reading for the astrology until we're clear of eclipse season. And so we've got a bit of time to sit with this. So come back to it maybe as the weeks go by. Keep in mind the dates, March 25th, which is today, but then April the 9th as well. That grand solar eclipse in Aries is going to pack a real punch. And so hopefully there might be some information in this reading that can soothe you. If you're still here with me, Scorpio Rising, can you please put a guitar in the comments in honor of my favorite Libra Rising, Courtney Love. I will be with you soon with more astrology, and I'll be with you sooner with another presentation, hopefully something that you'll enjoy. If you'd like me to read your birth chart, they look like this. I'll draw you one and I'll read it to you via Zoom for an hour and a half. Pick a spirit reading. If I've not met you before, it's at umaruby.com where you can make the appointment. You can also support my work financially at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. I'd be very much appreciative of that at this time. Thank you for your company, Scorpio Rising, and I will be speaking to you soon. Take good care during the eclipses. Stay safe. Hello Pisces Rising, welcome to your reading for eclipse season. This is round 1 of 2024. Now I've done something a little bit different with my presentation. Rather than speak about the 2 eclipses this season in separate readings, I've decided to incorporate them both. One, so I can give myself a little rest. I've got something else that I'm working on that I'd like to share with you next month. Number 2, there's something about polarity here. There's something about the opposition in the astrology and how one sign can inform the other, and also one house can inform the other too. There is links in opposition with astrology. And because eclipse season is so hectic, and because it's a moon that we can't trust, we can't work with, we can't rely on it as we might usually do, we've kind of got the next 3 weeks or so of waiting it out and just feeling through some of the different transits, but just holding hope for the next lunation that's in the clear, that sort of steps away from the dragon and its voraciousness, its ferociousness. So the 2 eclipses that we're speaking about is the lunar eclipse in Libra, which is happening, I think, today. I'm releasing these on March the 25th, my time, I think. So we're already speaking about something that is triggering. It's reminding us of the last eclipse cycle in Libra and in Aries, which began, I should say, in October of last year. And so when we think about Libra, which is a sign that is ruled by Venus, which is a sign about beautiful harmonics and synergy and exchange and fairness and balance and justice, when an eclipse occurs in Libra, especially near the dragon's tail, which is a place of relinquishment and a place of shedding, some topics around injustice arise. There's a great feeling of dissent, or a great feeling of unfairness that might arise, as it definitely did last October. There was a great sense of fear and an imbalance of power and an imbalance of protection and an imbalance of love, which is where the Venus element comes into. It felt like a stark, cold moment in our history, and as much as we tried to reconnect the dots and find one another again in that chaos, the growing sense of anger emerged quite violently. And this is where we start to speak about Aries. So on the opposite side of Libra is the sign Aries, and in tarot we speak to the Emperor for our sense of autonomy, our sense of self-actualization, independence, and our sense of drive. Mars is the planet that rules Aries. Mars brings passion, fire, sometimes violence, sometimes aggression. And so we're moving into this space right now with unstable lunations, unstable energy in the stratosphere, no moon to really call our own. We're going to have to really just roll with the punches as the dragon does its work. And so on the 25th of March, the Libra lunar eclipse will occur, and this is your 8th house that we speak to. And the 8th speaks to a complex list of topics. Some of them are to do with currency, to do with financial agreements and collaborations, how our resources are obliged to the other, or how their resources are obliged to us, how we sort of work together in financial matters. But there's also an other layer of grief that's attached to the 8th house too. In some forms of astrology, by the time we reach the 8th house, we come face to face with the Maker. We come face to face with either our doom or our uprising. It's quite biblical in its conversation, but I think that grief is probably a really great word for it too. There's a sense of loss in the 8th house after the joy of the 7th, of coming together. In the 8th, we separate, if that's a good visual for you. So this is justice. This is Libra. This is a house for you that's ruled by Venus, that is ruled by love. This may go to explain the intensity of your bonds. When you come into contact with someone, when you make that emotional exchange, it reverberates through your soul. There is something beautiful about Libra in its ability to find harmony and find music in its presence, in the place that it lords over. But with an eclipse there could be some difficulty coming forward. There could be some lamentation, perhaps, about the inability to collaborate, either at this time or in the past. Things might emerge for you, and there might be, with the influence of this dragon's tail, there might be some sort of shedding that we go through here in the 8th house. There might be things that we need to see dissipate or let go. On the opposite side of the scale, by the time April the 9th rolls around, the sun and the moon will become exactly conjoined at 19 degrees of Aries, and they will also be in direct connection with Chiron, who is our wounded healer, the centaur that was an expert in healing art, that knew how to salve, that learned endless, endless philosophies and recipes for healing physically and emotionally, but they had nothing in their magic book that could heal their own wound. And so this is the eclipse on the 9th of April. There's an opportunity here, and there's an invitation here to heal. An eclipse here that is being gobbled up by the dragon, an eclipse that is actually going to be visible all the way across the United States. This speaks to a critical point where we must reevaluate our structures, where we must reevaluate how we resource ourselves. Because in opposition to the 8th house is the 2nd house, and this is where Aries is for you. This is a house that is ruled by Mars. So on your birth chart, you can perhaps look to see where Mars lies and how Mars informs your ability to resource yourself, to take care of yourself financially, what you're going to do with those resources moving forward too. Where the dragon is pointed, sometimes there's an influx of extra unexpected energy here, but you can see it kind of feels like it's unstable either way. These are two very sensitive parts of the chart to be so unstable or to be so unprepared for. So we're going to work with this as best we can. And the two planets that I just mentioned, Venus and Mars, might be peppering your sense of self with some messaging too. So these two eclipses speak to the energy of Venus in Libra and Mars in Aries. And both of these planets have passed through or are in the process of passing through Pisces. And we know that Saturn is in Pisces still. That stricter boundary, that container, that fence, those limits to your absolute, incredibly magical mermaid vibe. There has been something of a lesson here. And Venus passed through and made an exact conjunction with Saturn on March the 22nd, so a few days before the Libra eclipse. And then Mars will make an exact conjunction with Saturn a few days after the solar eclipse. So you kind of hold some keys here, Pisces Rising. There's preparation that we need to make for Mars and Saturn in conjunction, because that feels like oppressor versus oppressor. That feels really alpha to me. That feels really brutal and cruel. So this is something that we're going to really witness at this time, and we're going to breathe through it. We're going to really investigate where these wounds about your ability to structure your life in a way that has your finances regenerative, that has you being able to take care of yourself with your interests, including your strength, including the things that you find to be fascinating. Your contribution here is being pulled into direct focus, but we don't have a moon that we can trust. We have something that feels unstable. So what are we going to do? I think it might be time, Pisces Rising, to enact the fox. You remember? It might be time to enact your animal, your instinct at this time. It might be time to really go out there and smell and feel things around you. It might be time to trust yourself rather than looking to the moon as your guide. If there are ideas that you've been having that have been in sort of like staccato rhythm, kind of like, oh, I'm just blank staring at a wall, or I could do this and this and this and this and this and this. Or if you've been looking for patterns in your life or patterns in the astrology, trying to make sense of it, trying to find that portal through into a place that doesn't feel so oppressive, that Saturn oppression, perhaps. This eclipse season, I would really encourage you to come back to the fox, my friend. The fox can see in the dark. The fox can find their own rhythm as they wait out the storm. Now, I don't wish to give you this horoscope with a sense of foreboding. It's just something that in my work, as the years go by, and in my recollection of my life, eclipses have never really failed to affect. And this Aries eclipse, this Aries solar eclipse on the 9th of April, the one that's in conjunction with Chiron, the one that personally is urging you to find where the root of this pain for you is, around your resourcefulness, is also being watched by the United States of America. It's going to traverse the majority of the continent and it will be visible to the naked eye. And so when thinking about supremacy and thinking about pain, the results of supremacy, there might be some things here that come up, maybe not in your personal life, but the world over, that we will need to contend with and to reckon with. There'll be some things here about the systems that have continually oppressed, the language that folks are finding to speak out against oppression. However, the pain of change. So when it comes to resourcing yourself, this is the time. This is the time to find out where that pain is nagging at you. It's hard, but I think that we can probably go a bit deep, Pisces Rising. I've changed the lighting plot. I'm not sure if you registered that. On the 9th of March, so the day before the Pisces new moon, the last time that we spoke, I had a dream of such intense, vivid blue. It was really overwhelming, and I couldn't quite figure out why, and it took me to look at the astrology to see that Mercury was in an exact conjunction with Neptune, another cosmic body that has been with you since 2012. Neptune is the lord of the imagination, the keeper of dreams, the one that makes something out of nothing. And so all the while we've been dealing with this restrictive quality for the last year, there's been something for the last decade that has been urging you back to your magic, back to finding the place where you shine, where you shimmer, back to finding your control of your own life, your own destiny, your own offerings. And so we've got to remember that while every planet is passing through and coming into strict confrontation with Saturn, either before or after these eclipses, it's all connected. This feeling of shock and container, but then they've got to pass through Neptune too, back to the garden, back to the wilderness, back to your witch. The blue is speaking to the water signs, and as loving and as carefree and as sensitive and as vulnerable as the water signs are, they're also as deep as the ocean. And there's so many things that nobody knows about the depths of the ocean, Pisces Rising, but you do. So tell us. Find your strength. Find a place that doesn't have you in subjugation to a system, or doesn't have you in subjugation to the systems of your mind that continue to tell you that you're worth nothing, that you're stupid, that you focus on the wrong things, that you can't ascertain how to be a grown-up in this ever-changing life. Forget it all. Find your power in the deepest blue of the ocean, Pisces Rising. we're moving away. We're moving away from this binary, hateful, oppressive environment. We're moving away from somewhere that has you second guess your intellect, second guess your spirit. The outside world will do as it does. Your individual sense of self-expression, your magical stardust, is something that is never going to go away, Pisces rising. As much as you try and numb it out, it's not going away. You're not a victim, Pisces rising. The past is the past, and it hurts. But it's a memory. You know, the best way to work with this card is to take those swords out, take those memories out of the heart, allow the depth of the water to flow, and then kiss it goodbye. Because there are people waiting for you. There are people that love you for your depth, for your blue, for your emotional availability and your magical skill. There are parts of you that are coming back from those depths to the surface to reconnect with other folks. The more that you sit at home and hide away, the more that you devote your time in staccato rhythm to tasks that are left unfinished, the more you're going to feel like a failure. And the more those swords are going to deepen into your heart and your mind. In tarot, the swords are our thoughts. The Three of Swords is a memory. Unearth that. Go through that. Talk to your therapist about this and find the pathway to self-acceptance and find the pathway to self-love, Pisces rising. Saturn is whipping you. Saturn is not letting you get away with it. Venus wants you to be your creative, true, vibrant self. In fact, Mars wants you to be in control, to be your own daddy. So use this eclipse time wisely, use it gently, use it with sensitivity. Don't use it with a bottle under your arm and the blinds closed and the scrolling in endless supply in front of your eyes. Because this is life, Pisces rising, and you're missing it. I love you so much. I'm very proud of you. If you're still here with me, Pisces rising, can you please put a guitar in the comments in honor of my favorite Libra rising, Miss Courtney Love? And if I've not met you before face to face and you'd love a reading with me, I will draw your birth chart to look like this and I'll read it to you via Zoom. You can make an appointment at umaruby.com. That's my website. Choose the spirit reading if I've not met you before. If I have met you before and you'd like another reading, head to the Back for More tab and pick a magic, truth, growth, love, or femme reading. If you'd like to support my work, head to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby and you can put some money in the tip jar, or you can subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month. I'm very happy that you're here, Pisces rising. I'm very proud of you, and I wish for us to continue on this journey together, and I wish for whatever these eclipses bring up or reveal to us or throw our way to embolden our sense of autonomy and our sense of pride in our work. I will not be with you for the next eclipse. That's covered here. So the readings for your horoscopes will ease up for the next couple of weeks. But I am working on a separate project that hopefully I will have released in time for a very important date. But I'll let you know more of that when I see you next. Take good care of yourself, Pisces, and I'll speak to you soon.